Welcome back to Firefly Studios. My name is Kadia. Today we are going to continue our Unity's fundamentals course, this time going into particle effects. Particle effects are super cool. You can use them for a ton of things. In our case, we're going to use it for hitting just an effect when we hit something with our spear. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to right click, go to Effects and Particle System, and I'm going to call this Hit Effect. This is what a particle system looks like by default. We've got a ton of settings over here. So before we do anything, let's go through how we make a custom particle effect. So you go into your favorite art program. Mine is Affinity, and I'm going to create a particle effect. Do note that each file that you create will only be responsible for one particle, if that makes sense. You could do multiple, but then you have to export it in pieces. So I'm gonna just go to my shapes. Let's do square star tool. That looks kind of cool. And do something like that. And let me just tweak it a little bit. Yeah, I like this. You do want to make sure that it is white. So I'm gonna make sure the fill is all the way white. And then I'm not gonna have any lines. Then we can just export this. So I'm going to export it as a PNG directly to the folder that I want it to be in. And then I don't care about this file, so I'm going to just close out without saving. We'll go back to Unity, and we can now see that we've got it right here. We're going to set it to multiple and open up a sprite editor and make sure we slice it. Slice, slice, apply, close out. All right, then we're going to make a folder called materials and make a new material. So you right click, go down to material. I'm going to call this hit particle. And then over here where it says shader, we're going to select particles standard unlit. We're going to change its rendering mode to additive. These are just different blend modes. Additive is the one I like to use the most. Leave this on multiply. And then we are going to, where it says albedo here, this is where we're going to drag in our particle to albedo. Do note that you have to drag in the actual file itself and see how it's now a little roughly snowflakey type thing. Then we can go to our particle system, scroll down to the bottom here and go to the renderer. Here where it says material, we can select our own material. So I'm going to press this little lock icon in the top right, open up my materials folder and drag this in. And you can see all my particles now changed to that image I created. So that's how you make a custom one. So I'm going to keep it on that. And then let's start going over these settings. So looping is, does your particle system loop or not? Duration is the time. Got a whole bunch of settings here. Most of these are self-evident, just based off the name. For any of these with a drop-down, you can change it to be a random between two constants, or some of them you can do on a curve. So you can actually draw a curve and it will proceed based off of lifetime or randomly a point along the curve. I like to use a lot of random between two constants to make it have some sort of a little bit of randomness to it. So I'm gonna mess around with some settings here. Let's make these vaguely mushroomy color. So actually, no, we'll make them kind of reddish. I like red. All right. We're going to go random between two colors. And then we'll do maybe an orange. And then we're going to hit play. All right. I need to set my other color. Okay. And then we can set some of our other settings. You can see over here, the colors are showing. Must be one of my settings why they're not showing here. I'll have to mess around with that. I think it might have to do with, in this case, how I'm using the additive, maybe. I don't know, but I'll keep it over here for now. And then emission is how it's emitted. So rate over time is saying there's 10 of these that are spawning every second. If I change this to 0, there'll be none. If I change it to like 100, there'll be tons of them. So I'm gonna actually keep this at 0, but I'm gonna add in a burst. So there's like one burst of it, and there'll be 30 in that burst. Then we can go to our shape, and mess around with their shape. So see this little icon right over here in our scene view? That's the shape that they're emitting in. So for 2D, I like to use circle, and then you have to rotate it sometimes. So I'm gonna press 0 and then restart, and you can see here that they're exploding out like this. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it has to do with the additive. See how it's changing different colors on the ground and stuff? So I'm gonna actually quickly go back to here, uncheck the lock, and I'm gonna change this to opaque. And then go back to my hit effect and hit restart. All right, let's do not transparent, fade. See what fade looks like. All right, fade looks cool. We'll go with fade. Alrighty, then we can mess around with these settings if you want. I like my current settings. You have a whole bunch of stuff like velocity over lifetime, limit velocity over lifetime, all that kind of stuff. These, I just advise you have fun experimenting with them. It would take far too long to go through each individual ones of these, so I'll just go over a couple of the ones that I like to use. I like size over lifetime. That's a fun one to mess around with. So I'm going to enable this, and then I'll change my graph. I want them to shrink over their life. So you can see they start off big and then they get small. It's also sometimes fun to add a little bit of noise. So I'm going to come down to the noise one, and this will make them, they don't go in a straight line anymore. See how they kind of wiggle around? And you can change the strength. So I'm going to make this strength, let's say 0.6. So they wiggle a little bit less. And then we'll change the duration to 1. So this will make them burst out a lot less. We'll turn off looping and hit restart, because we're not going to want this kind of effect to loop. Then we will change its lifetime. This is how long they are on the scene. We can change this to something smaller. So if I change this to 1, now they'll just go out a little bit. We can set its speed. Let's do a random between constants. Let's do, we'll start off with a speed of 5 and we'll go up to a speed of 8. Let's see what that looks like. All right, I like that. So for the most part, it's just tweaking all these settings and getting something that you like. Let's do a little bit less of a lifetime, 0.8. I don't want them to go quite as far. That looks pretty cool. All right, I'm gonna call this as my particle. So once you have your particle, I would make it a prefab. So I'm gonna make a new folder and call this particles. And then open up said folder. I'm gonna create a new folder inside of this called player particles, PLA player. And then in here, we can just drag our hit effect to make it into a prefab and delete this. And then we just have to do a little minor code modification to make it work. So I'm gonna go to whatever script handles my attacking. For me, it is going to be my attack script. I just need to find where it is. There it is, thrust attack. And it's just as simple as spawning it. So I'm gonna create a new variable that is this private serialized field. I'm gonna call this a game object, and we're gonna call this hit particle. And then I'm going to instantiate hit particle at our enemy.transform.position and at quaternion.identity. All that part means is it has no rotation by default. So when we hit, it's going to cause that particle effect to happen for each enemy that we hit, which might not be the best way to implement it. If you have a whole bunch of enemies stacked on each other, that could get crazy. So maybe you could have a chance for it to hit. So I'm going to see if I can get this to work. Oh, we have a null reference because I didn't plug up the particle. So all I have to do there is go to our player, find my thrust attack, and see how it says hit particle none. We just need to assign it. So I'm going to go here, drag that in, and then hit play. And then if I can correctly time this so I can hit something, I'm gonna just spam. There you go. You see it. It looks like it explodes into these particles. And looking at the colors, there's a little bit more yellow in these spitballs, yellow and blue. So let's modify the colors so it looks like they fit more. So I'm just open up the prefab and I'll change these colors to a yellow and a blue. And then we can give that a go and see if that feels better. I think it will. I'm going to use our infamous spamming technique there. Alright, yeah, that looks pretty cool. I like it. That's how you do particles. They're real simple. You can do all sorts of particles for all sorts of things. They're really important for adding a polished feel to your game and giving user feedback. I like using them when you move, so there's like a little dust cloud that will kick up, or when you hit something or when something hits the player. They're very cool. I hope you found this video interesting. Please hit the likes and subscribe buttons, and I will see you